And now let's join Gene Shepard.
Excuse me, brack. You don't mind if I light up my Easter Bunny briar pipe, do you? It's a hand-carved pipe in the shape of an Easter bunny. Whenever you light it up, the little eyes glow. It's kind of nice. It matches my Easter Bunny slippers. And I like to have a matching pipe and slippers. Adds a little elegance. And I have this bunny fur smoking jacket that I wear that has ears on the back, little claws down on the cuffs. It's kind of nice. Well, a man has to have style in his life. Don't you agree, Corny? Right. Style and nice women. A little wine now and again. That's what it's about. That's it. That's not bad. Little thing there. Not bad little thing there. This is going to be a very busy evening here at the little old office. Very busy evening here at the little old office. Before we get underway, I'd like to take this opportunity to salute British style, which I've always found a little more elegant than ours. Let's face it. I mean, that's the difference really between America and England is style. I mean, we got a lot of loud mouths, but they got a lot of style, you know. Oh, trail of God. You agree with that, don't you? A little bit there, Corny. You've been down there in the islands. They do it right. When a Britisher wears a pair of tropical shorts, he wears them the way they should be worn. When an American wears a set of tropical shorts, it looks always like he's just the slightest bit like he's wearing his jockeys. And they hang down in the wrong places. It's a matter of style. It really is. And I would like to salute British crime, which has style, too. It's really elegant. We'd like to salute a little incident that occurred in Hove, where style is of the essence. Taxi driver John Horton, 72. Now, that in itself has a certain style. 72. Can't you see him being played by Sir Aubrey Smith or Cedric Hardwicke, one of the more elegant English... You know, I one time sat through an entire afternoon in the British theater one great afternoon of my life with an Englishman, and we were watching a play starring an English actor, famous English actor named Sir Hugh Griffith. You've heard of him? Well, at first, when the play opened up, the curtain went up, and one of the great things about the English theater, of course, is you can take a finger of brandy down into the audience and sit there and sip brandy while the play is going. It's not style. It really is. We have this awful orange drink that is served in American theaters, which bears no relationship to orange, nor even a drink. Which, I don't know where that was invented. It certainly didn't come out of the head. That was not created by the hand of God. No way. That was created by the hand of Schubert, I think, somewhere along the line. But nevertheless, I'm sitting in the tiers there and enjoying a little one of my favorite scotches. I'm not a Scotchman, but there are some really elegant Scotch. Checkers. It's an elegant Scotch. Checkers. Oh, yes. You've never heard of it, have you? Well, that's because it's $17.50 a fifth. So that kind you just wouldn't see down at the cut-rate Saskatoon liquor shop. No way. This is not exactly Thunderbird. So I'm sitting there having a finger and a half of this elegant Scotch and sipping it with as much style as I can muster up, considering the fact I come from Indiana. And this gentleman sitting next to me, of course, was an Englishman. And the play opened up, the curtain went up, and the thing about the British theater, almost everything hangs out. And that's what gives it its special quality. You can hear the curtain going up. You can hear creaks of pulleys. The curtain, you know you're in the theater, you know? There's no pretense that we're having a slice of existence in life. This is the Noel Coward world, and the thing goes right up. It stops at the top, and you could hear the weights thump when it stopped. And little dust raises from the stage where British thespians have been treading upon the boards since just after Sir Francis Bacon stopped writing. And there's that quality in the air. And elderly ladies were sitting all around me, and tall, thin ladies, ladies of a certain age, as the French say, of which you see many in the British theater. I like that phrase, ladies of a certain age. What is a certain age? Well, that's style, you know. Ladies of a certain age. And I'm having my scotch. Well, the opening line was spoken by the actor, Mr. Griffith, who came out from the wings, and he staggered on stage. He was supposed to be a general, and he was wearing his old a retired general, I might add, and he's in his country home. Now, that's something that the English specialize in, a thing called the country home. You understand that too, Corny, don't you? Country home. It's not the same as your pad out in Fire Island. No way. A country home also has a kind of wonderful decayed elegance, especially seen in the British theater, because they always have this yellowish light that comes in through what looks like a rose trellis, just off stage through the window. You see it, and it's a classical set. And there's a thing called a chiffonier. There's also a curious piece of furniture known as a buffet. Yeah, a buffet with a large mirror over it, and some what appears to be potted peonies that are made of wax. And so Sir Griffith walks out on the stage and he goes, and at that point, I thought, wait a minute, I'll get used to the accent, is the way I said. I thought, well, I'll get used to the delivery. See, and he goes, and with that, the butler comes out, and this is part of the English country houses. There's always a butler, and there's a maid, and the butler comes out, and he answers the general, Mr. Sir Hugh Griffith, playing a general. He answers him, and he's carrying a tray. A lot of tray carrying is done in English plays. The tray is a very important prop. A silver tray, almost always, with a couple of silver-like utensils on it, usually a thing that something pours out of, and a few silver goblets. And the tall, thin butler answered Mr. Griffith with the following line. Well, I said, and with that, the audience sort of chuckled. And then Griffith answered him by going, well, this continued for 3 acts. And deep into the third act, I finally had to say it. I leaned to my Englishman friend sitting next to me and I said, "Excuse me, Cyril." And he says, "Yes." I said, "Cyril, what the hell is he saying?" He says, "Well, I don't know, really, but it's quite amusing, isn't it?" And I said, "Well, I see, nobody in the audience could understand him either." Which gave me a sense of real belonging at that point. That there's a certain kind of English actor that comes on stage with a mouthful of cream of wheat. And so that was enough. And the evening and the afternoon wore on, and it was raining outside in London, and you could hear off in the distance the occasional honk of a horn of a cab. And it was just one of those great afternoons in the London theater. And you don't have to understand it. That's not the point, not to understand. The point is to be. And Hove, England, we must salute this incident that occurred. It fits right in with that. Taxi driver John Horton, that's a name. Jonathan Horton. My age is, of course, none of your business, But if you're a Bobby, I must answer, it is 72 summers. John Horton. Anyway, he called police. Well, they're not called police in England. They're called the constabulary, which has a much better swing to it. The constabulary, for example, you go to Jamaica, and the constabulary are the most elegantly dressed men on the island. Do you agree? Oh, you see a man directing traffic in Montego Bay, and you've seen style. Do you agree? Elegant. And that shirt is so sharp, so fantastic. Those striped ones especially. Well, nevertheless, he called the constabulary to complain that he took, he was complaining about a fare that he took on a 4-mile round trip to a Brighton post office, and the fare ran away without compensation. He did not pay. Well, that's not a story. Fare runs away without paying. The story is a little deeper than that. It wasn't as though the fare didn't have money. In fact, Mr. Horton, the cab driver, said that the passenger had instructed Mr. Horton, he says, "Will you please pull up to this building for 1 minute? I will be out in exactly 60 seconds, and then we must be off post-haste. So keep your motor running." At that point, he rushed into the post office, returned in 58 seconds, jumped back into the cab. They went around the corner. He leaped out and disappeared. And what bugged him was the fact that the fare had just robbed the post office of $1,200. And when later asked who he looked like, he said, "Well, that young chap in the movies, what's his name, Guinness. He looked a little like that man Guinness." Oh, the hollow laughter of the gods. That young chap in the movies, what's his name? He's named after the stout, Guinness, I believe. Yes, Alec Guinness, his name. I'd like to think that it was Alec Guinness out on a weekend, getting into a role, you know. A little hollow laughter. I'm doing this. Oh, incidentally, this is being done as a public service on the part of this vast and deeply concerned media of expression here, that the world doesn't laugh much, and we're giving you 60 seconds of public service laughter. Just turn the gain up and let it float out through the living room there, through the car seat there, drift out over the turnpike as you drive along. They'll think that you saw something funny in life. Yeah. Oh, come on, will you? Come on, quit tickling me. Hold it there. That's enough public service for tonight. This is WOR in New York, the Big Apple. Oh, let's see. According to the wisdom given down by the gods, you can't win the Olympics if you don't enter. Oh, yeah, that's true. And you can't enter without money, but you can help by attending Super Skates 2 on Sunday afternoon, November the 23rd. There's going to be a big ice show there, Olympic and international figure skating stars, and all proceeds will go to the U.S. Olympic teams. Tickets are available at the Madison Square Garden, Ticketron. So have a great afternoon watching some great skaters, and you'll help out the Olympics. Well, we're really hammering it down tonight, huh? Run out of ideas for tonight's supper, huh? Well, let the Long Island Press help you select a wide variety of money-saving recipes for your family. Every Wednesday, the Long Island Press offers menus and all kinds of great stuff. So join the million prestige readers who read the Long Island Press.
This is certainly superior.
Delicious.
I think it's wonderful.
These folks are talking about Hanover Trail Steakhouse.
Price, meals, everything. You know, you get the best of everything kind of all put together.
It's almost as cheap as it is eating at home. You might just well come here and let them do the cooking for you, you know.
Price is right and the quality is excellent, really. No, another thing we noticed that you order a steak, medium rare or rare, and you get it.
Let's just say I'd come back again, and I'd recommend it to other people.
When a restaurant's this good, the good word gets around. And Hanover Trail Steakhouse is really something to talk about. Tender, juicy steaks, potato, crisp garden salad, all the rolls and butter you can eat, and your choice of cocktails, of course. We're open every day from 11:30 a.m., so come to Hanover Trail for a meal that practically speaks for itself.
I've eaten in many, many hundreds of places, but this is certainly superior. This is a cut above all of them.
Hanover Trail Steakhouse, a cut above. In Whippany, Ramsey, and Woodbridge, New Jersey.
Cash register rings over here in the corner. You know, I don't know. You know, that reminds me. I've never discussed never told you the story of one of the great, sad, totally educational evenings that I once spent with my old man at a fight. It was the only time I ever went to a fight when I was a kid. I mean, you know, a real fight. Oh, they had plenty of fights at the Warren G. Harding School, but that was a different kind. You know, there was a lot of bloody noses. Well, listen, I myself participated in several fights. I wonder how many of you were ever brought up before the head of your school for fighting. Were you, Mark? Were you? I can't believe it. Were you? You're such an elegant person. No, I mean for fighting. And it was at that moment when I was brought up for fighting, and how the fight broke out. Fights break out almost like spontaneous combustion. A fight is not a premeditated thing, although I suspect there's a long history before the actual fight that has to be faced. But the day that I had this fight with this guy, his name was Harold Dill, and it was it was a nightmare scene that we were out there messing around. There was a recess scene, and I guess I was in 5th grade at the time. Yeah, it was 5th grade, as a matter of fact, Miss Robinette, because I remember her taking me and Dill down through the halls right to the head lady. We had a principal who was a lady, and Miss Norton, and I went down. How the fight started, we were out there messing around, and Schwartz and all of us were out there. You know, there's certain kinds of kids that are just by nature peace-loving. Then there's other kind of kids that are peace-hating. And then there's an in-between kid who is buffeted between the two. It's the in-between kid that gets killed in all the wars. The peace lover winds up doing 2 years in some place up in Toronto growing radishes. The peace lover becomes a general. The war lover becomes a general. It's the in-between guy that gets he gets it in the second wave, coming up on some crazy island someplace. Well, I was in between. Well, now you just saw recently there was a fight in the recent baseball season between two baseball stars of the Oakland A's. Who got hurt? It wasn't Bill. What was his name? The guy that fought with Reggie Jackson. No, it wasn't Blue Moon Odom, was it? Was it Blue Moon? No, that was a later fight. Blue Moon Odom and Raleigh Fingers had a fight. You know, it takes a lot of guts to fight a guy that has waxed mustaches that curl. I mean, you know. No, this was an earlier fight, early in the season, that Reggie Jackson and a fellow outfielder, Bill something, what was his name? Huh? No, I don't recall his name. He played in the series, but he's not really particularly a star. But two outfielders, and he and Reggie had this fantastic fight. But who got hurt in the fight? Yeah, that's right. Some poor guy tried to break it up and wound up with a busted shoulder. And later, when he was asked about it, what did Reggie Jackson say about it? Was he sorry? He says nobody asked him to get in it. That was his answer to that. He was out for the season. Well, this is what happens. I was messing around with Schwartz and Flick and those guys. And there was Harold Dill over there. Well, Harold Dill was a notorious crowd pusher around there. He was, let's say, a peace hater. He was not a war lover. That's not the same. He was a peace hater. He did not like to see peace at any point. He was a troublemaker. You know that great phrase, a troublemaker? They don't use that anymore. You know, there's certain guys that just in public life are troublemakers. Oh, absolutely. Troublemaker. You're a troublemaker, you know. Well, Harold Dill was a born troublemaker, and he was a born bully. Actually, he was a toady to a really first-class bully who goes beyond all concept of any bully I ever knew. Farkas. Did you ever hear of Scut Farkas? His name is already, it's famous all the way out to the East Coast. Well, I went to school with Scut Farkas. That's like saying you went to school with Beowulf, you know? I mean, he was the ultimate, and Harold Dill was his toady. Now, see, you make a mistake in thinking a toady is a coward. That a toady, quite often, is merely, let's put it this way, a runner-up. I mean, if you start pushing around the Godfather's best friend, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Not necessarily from the Godfather even, but from the best friend. Oh. And so I'm messing around out there. I'm in 5th grade, you know, and there's just stuff going on. All of a sudden, there's a big uproar breaks out over by the swings. And, you know, you've been out on recess. You've had recess. You know, they had the swings and that. There's a big uproar breaks out on the swings. And a lot of people yell, a lot of kids yelling, and everybody running around. And who is down on the ground being pummeled into Rice Krispies? He's being made into his component parts, but Bobby Twyman. Well, now, Bobby Twyman later turned out to be a famed historian and a professor at Indiana University, later the University of Chicago. He was already well on his way, see. So Bobby Twyman was just giving Harold Dill an afternoon's workout. He just felt that he had to, you know, hit somebody, and there was Twyman. And it was the thick glasses, I think, that made Dill mad at Twyman. Glasses often cause the bile of a bully to rise to the surface. I mean, using such phrases as, "Hey, Four Eyes!" You've heard that expression many times, right? Hey, you're blind as a bat, Four Eyes! You know, that's something about glasses that engender certain hatred. You've seen it on school grounds, haven't you? Now, I don't know why this is so. Maybe it's possibly signifies weakness. You can't see. Four Eyes. Well, there was poor old Bobby down on the ground, who, by the way, Bobby in the 5th grade was already 6'7". He was built along the lines of an early John Schlesinger. You know, he was 6'7". Whereas, on the other hand, Harold Dill was 5'2", but made out of solid suet. Now, if you can imagine suet covered with stubble. Right, he had a crew cut all over. He was furry. Dill, and he had yellow eyes. He had these narrow yellow eyes, and his nose was always running a little bit. And he would blow his nose in the sleeve of his jacket all the time. Now and he spit. He was the most fantastic spitter. Harold Dill could spit all the way up to the 2nd floor windows at the school. You know, up there, bang. And tremendous control. A little tiny wad of white saliva, you know, like a BB. You just lay it out. You know, the only other great spitter I've seen in recent years is a player who played for the Mets. I used to wait for him when he'd come up. Every time he'd come up, because his spitting was really something to watch. You'd walk up to the plate and you'd just see this little tiny pellet go whistling out maybe 20 or 30 feet down the first baseline. Just fantastic. Against the wind, you know, I never could believe it. It's Tommy Agee. Agee was a magnificent spitter, which is not the same as the tobacco juice spitter. That's something else. That's just pure quantity. I like quality. You know, you get that nice little pellet, bang, you know. Well, Dill was a great spitter. He had all the talents. I mean, he could spit, and he was a tremendous butter, you know. Have you ever seen a guy that could put his head down and just, bam, you know, butt? Had a battering ram for a head. So we're out there messing around. All of a sudden, this fight breaks out, and there is Harold Dill has got Bobby Twyman stretched out, and he is working him up from the bottom up. He is just pounding him from the ankles all the way on up, and he was working up towards the ears, you know. And it was like seeing a guy getting gored by a small, angry rhinoceros in the rutting season. And he's just working him over, see. Well, I walk over there, see. I just walk over, and I'm in the crowd, and the crowd is pushing in, see. And the next thing you know, the crowd pushes in, and I topple over, and I land on top of Dill. I was enjoying this sight, you see. I was not about to be a peacemaker. And I fall over on Dill. With that, Dill turns. He figures that one of Bobby Twyman's friends has now pitched in, see, which is what he wanted. He wasn't getting anything out of Twyman. He was like, fighting a wet noodle. There was nothing happening. And when you fight, you want a little fight back, I mean, when you go fishing, you want the fish to fight, don't you? You don't want to just lay on the end of the hook and come in. You come on, okay, pull me in, it's okay, Twyman was just laying there, he was an early Gandhi. Go, kill me if you will. Kill me, I am a future historian, go. And he's pounding the hell out of him. Well, at that point, I topple over, see, and it's just like falling into a wearing blender. It was terrible. With that, yeah, Dill turns, who do you think you are? And the next thing I know, me and Dill now are rolling on the ground. Well, I wasn't Twyman, remember. I was not Twyman at all. I was known, as fairly agile in my set, and I was a notorious tripper. My talent was tripping. I love to trip guys. There are certain guys that when you're sitting in the back of the room, which is what I was always sitting in, because my name began with S. When somebody was called on, one of my famous witticisms was, as the guy is walking up the aisle to go up to the board, like a snake, my right foot would stick out and would trip him. He'd fall heavily, and I'd sit innocently. See, that's witty, isn't it? I mean, that really's got a lot of style, And I was a great tripper, so I was not known. I was not at all in the Bobby Twyman League. But I was, on the other hand, not necessarily in the Harold Dill League either, see, because there were certain things you just didn't do. You didn't take on Harold Dill. He took you on. That's the way it went. So I am rolling around. Dill, of course, is enraged to think that I would take him on. I would fight him, It seemed that I had attacked Dill. I mean, that's like just some ordinary citizen walking down the street, and across the street he sees Tough Tony Anastasia, And he says, hey, Mabel, that's Tough Tony Anastasia. I seen him in the pictures, I seen him in the newsreel. Him? He was the guy in the newspaper there, Tough Tony. You remember Tony Anastasia? Hey, I'm going to go over and take him on. Well, there was a brief flurry, a brief exchange of grunts and butts, and I got a shot, I want to tell you. He butted me right below the clavicle. And it's a fantastic shot right here. It still hurts once in a while, Corny, This guy had a head about like a bowling ball with fur on it, and boom, I get a shot. And I remember hitting him on the top of the head. When he hit me, I hit him on the top of the head. Well, now I was carrying a baseball. Well, I clopped him on the top of the head. Well, that bellow of rage, he rolls over, and the two of us are rolling around in the crowd. He says, yeah, you hit me with a ball. You hit me with a ball. I said, well, you butted me. And then we're bam, bam, we're hitting each other, rolling, and people are cheering, and it was all over that quick. Miss Shields, who was the second grade teacher, was the guard that day out at recess. They always assign a teacher to get out there and make sure that, nobody pulls a knife or throws a hand grenade into the gym or anything like that, see. So she's in there kicking and fighting, and the two of us are apart, see. Well, it was a terrible scene, because here we were, she pulls us apart, and I'm swinging wildly at Dill, and I swing, I hit Miss Shields. Well, I don't know whether you ever hit your teacher. Well, at that point, there's a dead silence falls. Shepard hit Miss Shields. And Miss Shields is standing there, her glasses are on crooked, and she's, you hit me, all right, both of you are coming in right now, you're coming into the office, and she's got Dill by the back of that blue, he always wore these blue work shirts, he had wore blue work shirts all the time, she grabs him by the back of the blue work shirts, grabs me by my jacket, and we are being pushed right through that hall, man. And Dill is on one side of her, I'm on the other side, and we get in front of Miss Norton's office. She says, she opens the door, she says, Miss Norton. Miss Norton is a very elegant lady. She's the principal. She says, Miss Norton, these two were fighting, and this one struck me. Well, I'm standing there, and all of a sudden it hit me. What I had done, I hit Miss Shields. I hit her out there in front of 500 kids. Well, Dill is saying nothing. He's been up before charges many times. I mean, Dill is an old veteran. You can tell the old veteran when he's dragged up before the bar of justice, he just stands there. His eyes have no emotion whatsoever.
And so she said, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Miss Norton says, this is terrible, fighting out there. And now somebody has hurt Miss Shields, and I'm going to find out who started this. With that, Dill, see again, he was experienced. Dill knew when to say it. He did it. He started it. At that point, Miss Norton turns to me, and I just went black. I just reached over Miss Shields and hit Dill right in the gut. Just bam! Right in the gut. I socked him. And at that, the crumb, he was acting. He fell down and rolled around on the floor. Oh, he hit me. Oh, he hit me. Oh, that bump. This guy could have walked right through the brick wall. Oh, he hit me. Oh, Dill is crying on the floor. Oh, he hit me. See, he started it. Oh. I stood there. Miss Shields has got me by the back of the neck. She says, yes, he hit poor Harold, and then he hit me. I hit Harold. I hit Miss Shields. And Miss Norton says, all right, it's time now for me to take some action. You've been a troublemaker here all along. And at that point, Dill, being an experienced witness, hollered, oh, he's been after me! He hits me all the time! Oh, God. Oh, God, I could hear kids outside of the office. You could hear them talking. Oh, it was, the big yelling and the hollering. There I was a defendant in the dock, and not only that, I was guilty. It was as if I suddenly found myself changed from Walter Mitty, and I had become King Kong. I was madder and madder. And then it happened. The first time that I knew the bitter, acrid taste of total disgrace.
This is Victor Borge. If you ever want to snap somebody's picture, you will ask them to say cheese, right? And when they do, they'll smile. But if you ask them to say Danish cheese, they'll glow. And you know that the smile is the shortest distance between people. And you will be among the smiliest people if, when you buy cheese, you will say, Danish cheese, please. Who knows? Somebody may be taking your picture.
Well, that's very coy. Your neighborhood ShopRite supermarkets are now featuring freshly imported Danish cheese, which certainly you're reminded of when you listen to Victor Borge. At ShopRite's Dairy Deli department, you'll find Danish cheese with the words imported from Denmark on every label. It's an exciting label. Enjoy some at home, at a party, or just, chew on it when you're driving out on the turnpike. Cheese from Denmark has character, so look at this great cheese at ShopRite. You'll find everything there, along with a lot of other stuff.
That's right. That's right. It was not the end of the story. Not really. Stories never truly end. They just go on and on and on like the great glaciers of geologic time. I tasted it, yes. Defeat, humiliation. But the next day, I awoke a celebrity at the Warren G. Harding School. The guy who not only hit Harold Dill in the gut, right in Miss Norton's office, but also hit Miss Snyder in the gut, right out there in the playground, right next to the swings. I fooled everybody, except one person, Harold Dill. And when Harold went out of Miss Norton's office, tears streaming down that rotten, crummy, stinking viper face, with the yellow teeth and the yellow eyes and the fur on top of the head, one little glint out of the left eye says, it ain't over. Don't let this fool you, kid. And it wasn't over, but that's another story. Another story. That concludes tonight's salute to Muhammad Ali and George Foreman.
This is WOR New York. You stay tuned for In Conversation.